feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, finally, Friday, Football Friday. Greetings and a good afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases. We're going to make a great case today that you're going to want to be here every day if you aren't generally, because Friday's just got a whole lot more fun with the Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented as well by Motley Rice. Coming up at 1 o'clock this afternoon, part of JB and Goldwater, JC Shurburtt, Michael Flint will both join us in the final hour of our show to preview this weekend's ball game between the South Carolina Gamecocks and the Eastern Illinois Panthers, who are currently 0-1. We will kind of get into a lot of what has transpired that has led to this moment over the last 8 or 9 months. We'll certainly look at the game, the things that we'll be most interested in. Michael Flint's analysis, if you've never heard him, he was with us every Friday last year. And when I was over at ESPN, he was with me every Friday there and every Saturday in our pregame show on that network as well. He is really good, and you're going to really enjoy that. And we all know what JC Shurburtt brings to the table. So can't wait for the 1 o'clock hour today. The Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. As part of the JB and Goldwater Show, coming up at 12:30, Rafael Esparza with mybookie.ag, our first college football weekend of the year for him, where we're going to be able to get it all the betting lines in, and he'll tell you how to make some money. So you might want to start dancing around at mybookie.ag. We can't get all the games in, but we certainly will get a bunch of them. We've got 12 picks to make today, Darren. 5, 8, 10, 12, 13, excuse me. 13 picks to make today. JC and Michael will pass along some picks as well. We will start here in the first segment. We'll litter those throughout the afternoon. We've got a 2-minute drill to get to in a little bit. We've got some college football news and notes from last night. We still have some golf to touch on as well. So it's going to be a pretty splendid day around here. We're glad you could join us. Obviously, the biggest game of the weekend is Clemson and Georgia. We're going to talk about that. It's a good Friday. Good afternoon, bud.
You know, nationally, the biggest game of the week is Clemson-Georgia because it's a top 5 matchup. It's the first time it's ever happened for Clemson to open with the top 5 matchup. The eyes will be there. It's prime time. You can make a case that there are bigger games out there. You can make a case Penn State, Wisconsin's bigger. You can make a case North Carolina, Virginia Tech is bigger simply because of where those teams are trying to get to, who they're competing with.
Yeah.
In Clemson and Georgia, a loss probably doesn't kill either one of them. It hurts them, probably doesn't kill them. A loss for Penn State or Wisconsin probably knocks them out of the playoff hunt. A loss for North Carolina and Virginia Tech, you're already behind the 8 ball in the Coastal Division, chasing the winner on the other side, which will probably be Clemson. You can make that case. I'm ready for noon tomorrow.
Yeah, noon tomorrow is going to be a good time for you. That is when Penn State and Wisconsin will kick it off at Camp Randall on Fox. Yeah, we're going to pick that game coming up in just a little bit. Yeah, certainly there are different angles to talk about a lot of these games because you're right. Both of these teams in Clemson and Georgia could lose and still make the playoff. That might not be the case with some of these other big boys that are going to be playing this weekend. Miami's an interesting case. If they end up being a really good program, a playoff contending type team, and they only have one loss, and it's to Alabama. What type of knock is that on them? At the end of the year, if Miami has 2 losses and they're to Alabama and Clemson, and both of those teams maybe are undefeated, Miami's not going to be in the playoff with 2 losses, but they're still sitting there at 10 or 11-2 or something like that, and on the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're 11 or 12-1 with a loss to Alabama at the start of the year, so here's the thing. Nobody cares about this. I mean, we care, but we don't care. But the fact of the matter is we get to start spinning those tires now. We do. Everybody does it every year. So we finally get to start having those type conversations based on results from ball games.
Yep.
And speaking of which, we'll get to some of that here in just a little bit. But first, as we always do on Friday, we'll lead off with our 2-minute drill. Tonight's college football slate at 6:00. Speaking of North Carolina, as Darren mentioned, they are in Blacksburg to take on the Virginia Tech Hokies. Enter Sandman. We'll welcome VT to the field under Justin Fuente. What type of program do they have this year? Anxious to see that. Lane Stadium, we know, will be jumping 6:00 again on ESPN. Careful, Duke. They're on the road at Charlotte, 7:00 on the CBS Sports Network from Jerry Richardson Stadium. We're going to pick this game today. FYI. We're going to pick it here in just a little bit. And Michigan State and Northwestern could have a good old-fashioned Big Ten slobber knocker on ESPN tonight at 9:00. Those are the games I'll be watching, certainly. In the high school ranks, Wando and Somerville is called off. Wando has COVID issues. I actually caught wind of this last night, thought it could happen, and it did. Somerville was looking for a game. I don't think they found one, so they're not going to be able to play tonight either. Darren, though, will be calling the Dorman-Fort Dorchester game at 7:30 on My TV Charleston. If you're in the area, tune in because it could be a really good one. The FedEx Cup, of course, is playing as well, Darren. Patrick Cantlay's leading at 13 under. He'll tee off at 2:05 this afternoon, 2 strokes ahead of John Rahm, who's at 11 under. Scott Glaze picked John Rahm to win it. We'll see if he's right come Sunday, round 2. Of course, the staggered start yesterday led us to where we are now with those scores. The Braves are 2 games up. They did win last night, but just 2 up on the Phillies in Colorado for the weekend. So careful, Atlanta. And then if you missed it last night, Coastal Carolina blew out the Citadel. So the string of tough games for the Dogs continues. Coastal, though, off to a good start. And speaking of last night, we will get more into that right now that the 2-minute drill is done. If you'd like to get a hold of us like Paul and Tyler and Adam and so many of you do every day, you can send a text, 843-321-8893. You can give us a call, and you can always head to the chat rooms as well, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever. Our Share Healthcare chat lines, text lines, they are open. Do not get stuck with big medical bills that you cannot afford. Affordable options, user-friendly, biblically sound. Just go to the website, sharehealthcare.com. Sharehealthcare.com is legit. It's nationwide. They're wonderful, wonderful people. Sharehealthcare.com to make sure that you're not stuck in the rears with any type of medical expense that we never expect, but they certainly land on us from time to time. All right, so let's put this thing in reverse. And let's we can call this Hot Take Friday if you'd like to do that. So here's mine. East Carolina ain't good. All right.
Analysis.
Look. So I personally feel like I'm very fair to most conversations. I'm not a big overreact guy on anything you see in week 1 in college football, college baseball, college athletics. Darren, you've been around, especially college sports, your whole life. Things happen. And for that matter, I'm not a big overreact guy on things that happen after week 2, especially in college football. The season is long, yet it's short. So the things that I personally look at early in the year are schematics and do you have dudes? Because if you're making mistakes, like, yeah, certainly at the big boy level, like you were just talking about, mistakes in week one can absolutely cost you a national championship, a college playoff berth, a New Year's Six bowl or something like that. Mistakes in week one, week two can cost you at the FCS level, making the playoff. I mean, yes, mistakes can cost you a game, which in the long run could cost you, something bigger. But mistakes can also be cleaned up and you can get better. And you can also win games with mistakes and things like that. So last night, ECU certainly made a bunch of mistakes. App State, I actually think is pretty good. I think they've got guys. How good? We'll have to see. Here's my takeaway. If you want to be successful in this sport, you better be pretty good up front. And ECU is not. Like, they're not good on the offensive line. They're not good on the defensive line. And we're going to talk about Eastern Illinois today with the Big Gamecock Preview show coming up at 1:00. But we're going to mix in some of this because that certainly still looks like a trap game on the schedule. But I think there's Gamecock fans who watched that last night exhaling a little bit, saying, if App State can run right through you like that, there's no reason that South Carolina shouldn't literally control that ball game next week from start to finish.
Careful getting too overconfident in it, because the old cliche is true. So maybe you can take that cliche name tag off it. The biggest jump teams make, this is true across the board, it's going to be week 1 to week 2. Mike Houston, we know, is a hell of a football coach.
Absolutely.
I figured ECU would look a lot better last night than they did. I figured that they would take a step forward off the success of the end of the year last year, where they were putting up points and they were showing the Mike Houston train of success year 2 into year 3. You've seen it before. You've seen it in multiple stops before. What I just didn't take into account, look, App State was picked to finish tied for first in Coastal's division in the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
When you watched App State, my takeaway from last night's game wasn't so much ECU struggling in the trenches, which they did. They didn't look good. My takeaway was, App State's got some dudes. App State could be this year's Louisiana. They could be this year's Coastal Carolina. They could be this year's Sun Belt team that says, you know what, maybe we can make a New Year's Six type of bowl. That was my takeaway. And App State, they got athletes, man. They're not just some run-of-the-mill, like just transitioned from FCS. I wonder who would be favored if South Carolina played App State today. Truly wonder that. So I wouldn't get too overconfident, but yeah, you should. Based on just the dudes, like you said, South Carolina should control that line of scrimmage. How it plays out, who plays, those are still question marks.
Yeah, again, what I look at is, do you have dudes or not? I like the quarterback. Speaking of which, by the way, Chase Bryce is a perfect fit, I think, at App State. That's a great landing spot for him. He had a nice night last night, former Clemson quarterback. The Ehlers kid, the Holton Ehlers kid, the lefty for ECU. I like him. I do. I don't think he's got a lot of help. I thought the receivers would be a little better. They're not that good. And I like the Harris kid at tailback, but up front they don't have guys on the lines of scrimmage. They just don't.
I mean, they don't pass the eye test there. They size, they were outmanned significantly by App State.
Yeah, it wasn't good. And that 33-19, the late score is what kept that close. All right, pick or no pick on that Hail Mary?
Didn't see it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. I look, everybody, they reviewed it, and everybody is not everybody, because if this was the Clemson-Georgia game, this would be the only thing people are talking about today. I thought from the get-go the App State guy caught it, and then they just wrestled away from him at the bottom. I think the broadcast team was a little surprised that they ended up overturning the call, which would have been a touchdown at the end of the half for East Carolina. But I mean, the first replay I looked at, I thought he caught it anyways. In the first replay, I said, he actually has possession. They're fighting to get possession away from him. So yeah, anyways, for any of those that saw that, I think that was actually the right call. But moving along here, we're going to get back into ECU. We'll kind of lump that into some conversation we have today with JC Shurburtt. Let's just go. We'll get to Boise and all that in a minute, but let's go right to Ohio State. So what happened last night is what I thought would happen. I thought that Minnesota would come out and play fairly well, and they did. And that place was on fire. I mean, it was rocking, and Minnesota was really hanging in there. But I also thought Ohio State, they just have too much talent. And at some point in time, they're probably going to pull away. You and I both picked them to win the game yesterday. I think the line ended up being 14.5 or 14. Some had it at 13.5, and they won by 14. So those guys in Vegas know a little bit. So, Ohio State has some things to work on. The Stroud kid had 13 completions for 300 yards. Woo! Wow. So the ones that he popped, they went a long ways. There's no doubt about that. They've got things to work on, but for a week 1 win on a Thursday night on the road against a Minnesota team that I actually respect, I actually give Ohio State some credit. I thought that was a good win for them. They've got issues, and some of those were exposed, and they got time to clean it up.
Yeah, here's why I didn't see that Hail Mary at the end of the ECU game. This was what I was predominantly watching last night. I was flipping to and from ECU and App State to get a gauge of it. This is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see Stroud. I wanted to see Minnesota. Minnesota had more of a fight than they had last year. They have more explosiveness than they had last year. And when they got that interception in the first quarter, I believe, maybe it was early in the second quarter, the one that changed the tide in the first half, that place was rocking, man. And they had all the momentum in the world. Ohio State kept it very close to the vest in the first half, very un-Ryan Day-like, and opposite of what he told C.J. Stroud that he would do. He told his freshman quarterback, who didn't take a snap last year, he said, man, we're going to be us, Ohio State. We're going to take some shots. We're going to pitch it around. That's not what they did in the first half. It was super conservative. And then the second half happens, and they blow it open, right? I mean, some of the numbers from the second half in that Ohio State game, 6 touchdowns over 30 yards for the whole game, 3 passing touchdowns for Stroud, all of them over 60 yards. He averaged almost 50 yards a completion in the second half. What Ohio State has is what we know they have. Dudes.
They got
lots of them. They're explosive offensively, and if they can continue to improve, then okay. I'm not going to sit here and say they shouldn't be the number 4 team in the country based on that performance. They've got the athletes. They've got the talent. They started slow, and then they showed what they can be in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to get it cleaned up, although they'll be back in the horseshoe next week. It's Oregon that's coming to town, and, it's clearly going to be maybe the premier national game at noon on Fox. Gamecocks play at noon next week on ESPNU, and I bet people like Darren are probably going to be watching that Oregon-Ohio State game instead of South Carolina. But so they're going to have to get it cleaned up. You get through that, and you're not looking at a loss for a while. I mean, they're gonna be rolling for the next few weeks, at least until you get some tricky ones there with Indiana and Penn State, Darren. But I liked them. Like you said, I'm a big fan of. Do you have guys or do you not have guys in week 1? Period. The end. Mm-hmm. You could get the stuff cleaned up, man. If you play like crap, you play like crap. You get it cleaned up. But do you have guys? And unlike ECU, Ohio State has dudes. And now the question, though, is do they have dudes that can go win a national championship? I think they do. I mean, the quarterback the Stroud kid is good, and he's more than likely only going to get better as the year goes along if he stays healthy. I mean, he's got all the ability in the world. So
like Justin Fields clone, right? I mean, he can run if he needs to, but doesn't want to. He can throw the ball seemingly the entire length of the field.
Yeah.
Another one of those California kids that isn't in California and he's balling out somewhere in the Midwest here instead of staying in California. Yeah, he should get better as the year. He got better in the second half. He should get better as the year goes on.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, is he better than Daniels? Is he better than Young? Is he better than Uiagalelei? I don't know. All that stuff's going to get itself worked out. I don't know. And what surrounds him, is that better than what surrounds Uiagalelei or Bryce Young or JT Daniels? We don't know. Or, is he better than Spencer Rattler? I'd say no. I like Spencer Rattler, but he's a guy that if he's elite, and if he plays like it, they're probably not going to lose. If he doesn't, then obviously that's going to expose them a little bit. I thought it was a good win for them last night. You get 45 points on the road in week 1, Darren. Obviously, that's a great night offensively, and they got some issues. But Minnesota, I like Minnesota. I think they're going to win a lot of games this year.
They're better than I thought they were. At least that was my impression of them last night. I thought Morgan threw the ball well. We knew that. It looks like the running back in play. I thought the defense moved around a little bit faster with more purpose than I saw them play last year. And I think a lot of the reason they were even in the game, though, was because of the Ohio State's offense. Timid would be the wrong word, but they didn't open it up.
Just slow.
And Stroud wasn't comfortable in the first half. That interception looked like he juiced up a 10-yard throw like he wanted to throw at 60 and threw it behind Olave, and it led to a pick. I mean, he wasn't comfortable yet. And he's a freshman. He never played. Fine. Yeah. So let's see how they look next week. Next week should be a great game.
For those of you that are listening, or excuse me, either listening or watching online, Craig, Tyler, all of you, we certainly hear from a number of folks daily. Throw us some predictions for the weekend, and we'll dish them out on the air here. Obviously, everybody is certainly in this state focused on Clemson and Georgia, South Carolina, Eastern Illinois, amongst others. But throw us your predictions for the ball games this weekend, starting with those two and others if you'd like to, if there's something that's on your radar. And we'll make it a part of our conversation because Darren and I, of course, will be picking games starting here coming up in just a few moments. Elsewhere last night, Darren, a couple of other things to kind of, pass along. Obviously, come from behind win down at the Bounce House after a weather delay. Gus Malzahn gets a win in his debut as the leader of UCF's program, 36-31 over Boise State. Kind of a strange night. Dylan Gabriel had a good game for UCF as well, and the Bowser kid, the tailback for UCF, had 170 yards on 32 carries. So that UCF program, that's a really, really good win for them.
Well, yeah, they were down 21-0. There were two stretches of 21-0 runs in the game. First, it was Boise who led it 21-0. Then UCF put up 21 straight. Then Boise was driving for the win and turned it over inside the 15 with 2 or 3 minutes to go in that game. So two solid G5 teams to keep an eye. It's a good win for UCF because that had been an awful way to start the Malzahn era. Opening up down 21 and losing, that'd have been terrible for them.
Yeah, that would have been a bad night, but they didn't. They won, and so UCF is well on their way to claiming another national championship. Hey, real quick Vegas note here, just kind of throw some more meat at those boys because they nailed the Ohio State one. They also nailed Eastern Washington and UNLV. That was a 1.5 point spread, and it was a 35-33 final in 2 overtimes. I mean, they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. Clearly here in this state last night, it was Coastal Carolina all over the Citadel. Coastal looked pretty good. I thought that game might be a little bit closer than it was, but it wasn't. 52-14, the final score. Grayson McCall only had 3 incompletions, and Shamari Jones 9 carries for 100 yards on the dot with a pair of touchdowns as well. McCall threw for 260 in that TD as well. So big numbers last night, certainly for Coastal. Rough start for the Citadel. Not an unexpected outcome, though. And we'll see if they can get that turned around. NC State throttled South Florida. South Florida's not any good. It's going to take Jeff Scott some time to get some players. They're just not good. 45-0, the final score up there in Raleigh. And then, Tennessee. Obviously, we talk a lot of SEC football around here, and it was a pretty sluggish start. Again, the overreaction crowd, which is normal. I get it. I'm not picking on anybody here, but after they saw him come out of the gates last night, Darren, it was like, wow, this Tennessee offense is going to be fun to watch. Well, moving fast and scoring points don't always correlate. It did in the second half last night. They put up 24, and they were able to pull away from Bowling Green, 38-6, but it was just 14-6 at halftime. And also, let's remember that the first half of a brand new offense that is literally moving at breakneck speed, it can be a little dicey. So, I didn't overreact to that. I think Tennessee's got a long ways to go. Mm-hmm. I'm not sold on Joe Milton. There's a reason why Jim Harbaugh said you can take off if you want to. No big deal here. I don't really think he's that good, to be honest with you. If he's the best they've got, well, those that took the over on the 6 wins for Tennessee this year might be a little disappointed when it comes in under that. Hendon Hooker's up there. I'm not sure. Darren, Tennessee, look, what you saw last night in the Tennessee Bowling Green game, you might very well see something similar tomorrow in the South Carolina Eastern Illinois game. Now, I'm being serious. I'm not talking about how fast they move. I'm talking we might look up at halftime and everybody goes, Carolina's beating Eastern Illinois 14-6. Are you kidding me? And then the final score is 38-6 or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very fair comparison because, again, don't expect South Carolina to go out and take a ton of shots downfield. I mean, they're going to try and establish the running game. We don't know how much of the offense they're going to allow Zeb Nolan to run, how many of those plays they'll call. I know Satterfield said that the whole playbook is there. That's nonsense. Of course it's not, because you don't want to show everything this week. And if ECU's overmatched, you don't want to show it all next week before the Georgia game either. I think it's fair to think that it's possible that this team figures it out for a little bit for the first couple of possessions and in the second half pulls away. I think that's very fair to assume.
Yeah, for all the Gamecock fans, it's College Colors Day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. You know where my allegiance is, but for those picking on Tennessee, let's wait and see. Look, I think I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying there could be a similar situation where the scoreboard looks better than maybe some of what we see in the actual ball game. To Cooper's point, though, and both of those I totally agree with. They only had a lot of success the second half because they leaned on the running game. You're right. They absolutely did. They probably should have done that from the start, but I give Josh Heupel some credit here because he's getting out there trying to execute his offense. And let me see what my guys can and can't do here as we start the season against a team that we're going to beat. And if for some reason it's not working, we can adjust and go ahead and win this thing comfortably, but let's try to make it work. So, I think that's a pretty good job by Josh Heupel there. But also to your point there, Cooper, their passing game was an absolute disaster. Yeah. Joe Milton, I don't think he's that good. I mean, I really don't. I mean, maybe this offense, maybe they end up dinking and dunking it down the field, but it didn't look good. I mean, it goes back to what we already said, Darren. Week 1 is all about, like, if you haven't seen your team, you've got a coaching change or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen them, it's literally all about, okay, do we have dudes or not? We can fix things, but do we have the guys?
Yeah. I'm always skeptical when a quarterback couldn't wrangle a job one place and he transfers and becomes the starter another place. Like, all of a sudden he's a savior. See Will Levis, Kentucky. I understand Kentucky's super high on Will Levis, but I know what I saw. And he didn't transfer from Penn State because he didn't love Penn State. He transferred from Penn State because he wasn't going to play. He couldn't beat out Sean Clifford. So he ended up at Kentucky. Are you going to take some magical jump? Is Milton going to take some magical jump? I'm always skeptical about that.
Absolutely. Josh, you're right, brother. We shouldn't take too much away from tomorrow's game unless we lose. Absolutely. You could take a lot away from that. There's no doubt. But no, absolutely. It's about, do you have the guys or not?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have dudes? Period. If someone throws a pick, somebody fumbles, you can fix those things. Mm-hmm. But certainly going to talk much more about that up at the top of the 1 o'clock hour. The Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice with both JC Shurburtt and Michael Flint. JC will lead us off. Michael will take us home in that hour. But last year, we saved it till the end of the show. This year, we'll litter them throughout our program. Darren and I always make our weekend selections, and we'll make 3 of those now, and all 3 of these games are playing tonight. Rafael Esparza is coming up in the next segment. He's going to give you the over-unders on all this stuff, and we'll look at it more from a betting standpoint. But as to, just who wins the games, Darren, that's the way we like to have fun around here. We'll start with Duke and Charlotte, and everybody's like, Duke. Careful. They're going to be playing in Charlotte, and they are less now than touchdown favorites. 6.5 is the line. This would be an upset. Will Healy's done a nice job up there. Joe Cox, former wide receivers coach at Carolina under Will Muschamp, he's now coaching up at Charlotte. A little bit of a tie there. Can they do it, Darren? Can they upset the Duke Blue Devils and David Cutcliffe?
Duke is going to win this game. I just don't see Cutcliffe and company taking that dramatic of a step back and losing to Charlotte. I see them taking a step forward with another new quarterback and at least becoming respectable again, where they kind of slipped off that tag last year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I generally in David Cutcliffe's career, when you count him out of something, he figures out a way to get that thing turned around. So I do like Duke to win the game. I actually think it's going to be a pretty good game. You can watch it on the CBS Sports Network if you'd like, or at least check in on it, 7 o'clock this evening. The over-under, 60.5. So maybe expecting a couple of points here in the ball game. But I'm with Darren. And for those of you interested, take a look at the bottom of your screen if you're watching. Undefeated last night, JP.
I beat you last year. I don't remember the final tally, but I do remember that.
I think you got me by 10 or 8 or 10 last year.
It was in that range, yeah.
I closed the gap at the end, but it just I didn't have quite it might have been a little less than that. It doesn't matter. You won.
Yeah. That ECU and Boise pick were a little overzealous.
It's all right. It's all right. This one's close. Michigan State Northwestern tonight at 9 on ESPN. From Ryan Field in Evanston, Illinois, will we see J.C. Shurburtt in the stands? Will he paint his chest? Who knows? Who knows? 3 right now, Northwestern, the Wildcats, 3-point favorites. Is this a Big Ten slobber knocker? Who knows? But the over-under sits at 45.5. Darren, do they win? Northwestern?
Here's a note. The underdog has won the Michigan State Northwestern outright 4 of the last 5 meetings, 5 of the last 7 meetings. It's not going to happen, though. Northwestern is the better football team, even though they constantly get overlooked. Northwestern will win this football game. They'll win it outright. They'll cover that 3.
I'm with you. I think Northwestern wins. If they were playing this game in East Lansing, I would probably pull the trigger for the Spartans. A little bit of a home field advantage tonight. Northwestern, of course, will start Hunter Johnson, former Clemson quarterback. He'll be backed up by Ryan Helinski, former South Carolina Gamecock. So a couple of Palmetto State former QBs there leading the way for Northwestern. So that is of note tonight, 9 o'clock. If you want to watch that game, you can check out a former Tiger and a former Gamecock now sharing a locker room and a color that Hunter Johnson already had some apparel for, purple, because of his time at Clemson. And then, of course, the big one tonight at 6, North Carolina, ranked 10th in the country. They're in Blacksburg to take on Virginia Tech. 5.5. The Heels are favorites here. The over-under's at 63.5. North Carolina is a darling for some to maybe tap on that playoff door, maybe, if they can get to the ACC championship game and have a crack at, more than likely, Clemson. Who knows? But they're going to have to get through this one first. This is an important year for Justin Fuente, boys and girls. He's a guy who came in with a lot of expectations, and you know, when you follow Frank Beamer, they loved Frank Beamer. Even when he lost, they loved him. They ain't loving losing under Justin Fuente right now. Virginia Tech is probably going to have a 7-5 at minimum, but more than likely 8 wins or more type season, in my opinion, for them to feel very comfortable moving forward with Fuente. I'm not saying that they won't. If they win tonight, they more than likely will be 2-0 heading to West Virginia. Do they?
Boy, people are high on North Carolina. I'm high on them. You're high on them. They're 10th in the preseason poll. I think they go in and win that game. We've had a couple different people on this show suggest that they think Virginia Tech actually knocks off North Carolina. I think they win. I think Sam Howell is the difference. And I think after the game, maybe close in the first half, I think after the game, you're going to hear a line of, this is why Sam Howell is a legitimate Heisman Trophy contender, and North Carolina wins. Not sure they cover. I'm not touching the game, but I think they win.
Yeah. North Carolina, I don't know what to think about them. I just don't know what to think about them, but I do think that they will win the game. I think it's going to have a similar feel of Minnesota and Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Wow, Virginia Tech's going to pull this off. And then North Carolina will win. Maybe a late score gives them a little extra cushion, and they'll escape with a victory. All right, we've got plenty more to get to. The Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice, served by Whiskey Jam, is ahead in 25 minutes. You will not want to miss that. But coming up next, we'll fly west, south, kind of, New Orleans area.
I think Mississippi, but maybe he's back in Louisiana. I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to find out. Rafael Esparza will give us all of the goods on the game lines in college football this weekend from mybookie.ag right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity finance to new loan, subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. And two others you probably don't think much about: stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations: Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
The JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
I'm gonna keep on the run. I'm gonna have me some fun. If it costs me my very last dime, if I wind up broke, well, I'll always remember that.
Many of you don't realize this, but that is not Rafael Esparza singing that song. That is actually Elvis Presley. 12:38 on a Friday afternoon. Welcome back. The answer to that question, Darren, is yes. That you just
yes. I figured.
Yeah, the answer to that question is yes. Darren and I, we can communicate in a lot of different ways. You don't even know this. All right, so it's 12:38 on Friday afternoon. We're going to get into betting here in just a moment. But first and foremost, Rafael Esparza has been a friend of ours for a long time, and he has now recently relocated himself down to Louisiana just in time for Hurricane Ida to hit, of course. I understand that you did evacuate. How you doing, bud?
Good. If I was singing anything right now, I'd be singing the blues. I wouldn't be singing any Elvis songs. But it's okay. We made it back into the French Quarter where I have my place at, and it's sunny. I'll put it that way. It's blue skies right now.
Is there anything we can do for you?
Let's see, gas and anything I can put in the refrigerator because I had to throw everything else out. So probably gasoline. I mean, I think that's what's probably the biggest. From driving from Mississippi to Louisiana this morning, either gas stations were closed and empty, or people were just sitting there waiting. And I don't know how long they were waiting. You could tell their cars were off. They were just waiting for the next truck to come, or if a truck is coming.
How is it down there, Raphael? The TV, obviously, can tell a lot, but then you sometimes can't. What's it like in your area? I understand there is some electricity back, so that's good.
Yeah, well, French Quarter has electricity, so most of the places don't. I did see that they put up a timeline of when other parishes, I guess, are supposed to come on, but you could not tell that there was a hurricane. Everything's bone dry. I talked to a couple of people that actually stayed, and they said they don't think the drops hit the ground when the eye was close enough. So it's pretty bone dry out there. No puddles on the ground. So as one person stated, as I saw on the news, it was just one big giant tornado for about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Hurricanes are no fun. I remember sitting in the eye of Hurricane Hugo. I remember sitting on the front porch of the house that we had evacuated to. We actually were scheduled to go to Asheville and could only get to Columbia and stay with some friends. I remember literally in the middle of the night sitting on the front porch. There wasn't an ounce of wind. It was eerie. It was quiet. And then you could start to hear it again as it cranked back up and rolled right through. Well, look, we've been thinking about you. You know, I sent you a couple. I was starting to get a little worried, to be honest. I'd sent you a couple messages earlier in the week, and I never heard back from you. And I thought, oh God, am I going to have to go down there and find this guy? What's going on?
I was in the wind. I was outside in the wind trying to do some prop bets on like if I would get hit by a tree limb or stuff like that. So I was outside trying to see how far I can stand without falling over.
Well, you've certainly been in our prayers, but we're glad to have you today. Keep in touch. We'll keep in touch with you, and certainly, I mean, obviously, we can help you somehow from here. We're going to do it. We really appreciate it. All right, you want to tell people how to win some money, or actually, you might need some for repairs. You want to tell people how to lose some money?
Yeah, I would take both. I would take my winners and their losers because I can hurry up and repair fences and wipe artwork, and yeah, I'm down for it. And I'm going to give you a good upset right now on tonight's game, so I'm ready.
There you go.
My let me just tell everybody, mybookie.ag. Make sure that you are logged on now. Follow along on your phone, on your computer, wherever. There is a 50% sign-up bonus up to your first $1,000 if you've never done this. And so that means you put in $100, they give you $50. Put in $200, they give you $100. It's pretty simple math. You can probably figure it out from there. And with that being said, give it to us. Upset pick from Rafael Esparza. Where are you going?
Give me the Akron Zips. Straight up win against Auburn. No, that's not. That's Saturday's game. But I like the Hokies tonight. I think we're going to be hearing Metallica all 4 quarters. I think their defense is going to be playing much better. And I know this North Carolina quarterback, he's a Heisman talk, blah, 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 blah. But it's the first game, and things butterflies. And I think Virginia Tech has a lot to prove on how bad they played last year. And they had a lot of COVID issues last year. So I think that's what their record projected for them. So I like the Hokies. This number keeps on going up and up for me. I think by the time kickoff, I might get 6.5. So right now, they're 6s.
Do you like them straight up? You like them against the spread?
I like them both. I'll take the plus points, and I'll take the straight up. We're listening to Metallica all 4 quarters. You guys are. I can't. Probably won't be able to watch it, but you guys will be listening to Metallica all 4 quarters. Send me text updates, please.
Frank Beamer will not be there. He's in Columbia. Last night he was actually at the call-in show with his son, Shane. So they're going to have to win this one without Frank. So Rafael Esparza is starting us off pretty right here. Upset special on a Friday night to kick off college football. North Carolina goes down. If North Carolina does go down, what does that mean for the rest of their season? What can they accomplish with a loss in the first game?
The ACC. I mean, you could still make it all the way with a 1 loss. I mean, we're not talking about Alabama here. It's just, everyone else is going to have 1 losses besides Crimson Tide, so they'll be all right, North Carolina.
Okay. All right. There you go. North Carolina loses. 5.5 is what it's listed at my bookie, but you said that might go up, so we'll keep our eyes on that. The over/under 64 also in that ball game. All right, let's talk about Duke and Charlotte. They're at 7:00 tonight on the CBS Sports Network. This one sits at 6 now. The over/under is 60.5. David Cutcliffe and the Blue Devils had a tough one last year. They lost their quarterback Chase Bryce to App State, who last night beat East Carolina on national television. Are they looking at an upset at Jerry Richardson Stadium in Sparkle City?
I like the 49ers. I mean, over the summer, this number was 7.5, 7. Now it's 6.5, and I still think there's some good value on Charlotte in this one. I would say maybe see if you can wait and get a 7. But if you start seeing sixes pop down, I'd say hurry up and grab that 6.5. But I'll take the plus points on this one.
You got Charlotte to win the game?
No, just cover.
Okay.
I think they cover.
Okay,
but I think it's gonna be a field goal game.
Close one. Okay, all right. You know, those Power 5 programs up there in the state of North Carolina better watch out for these App States and Charlottes and ECUs of the world. They got some pretty good little programs. Well, I don't know about ECU right now. I thought they sucked last night, but App State is good, and Charlotte, Will Healy he's a guy on radars, certainly. All right, Michigan State and Northwestern tonight. 3-point favorites are the Wildcats, Raphael. The over-under is 46, so maybe kind of an old-school Big Ten type game here in Evanston, Illinois at Ryan Field. Again, 9 o'clock, the starting quarterback. A reminder for Northwestern is former Clemson QB Hunter Johnson. His backup is former Gamecock quarterback Ryan Helinski. Who wins and who covers?
And it's going to be an ugly, but if you like scoring, then maybe hopefully you DVR the Boise State UCF game, rewatch that game, because this one's going to be ugly, old school Big Ten football, run, punt, run, punt. Whoever wins by a field goal. I like Northwestern this one. I do think they have better coaching, and I think they'll be a little bit motivated. Give me Northwestern to win and cover.
Yeah, Darren, you and I agree with him. Darren and I have already picked these games. The remaining games that we're going to talk to Raphael about here, we will pick coming up in hour number 2, the Big Gamecock Preview show with J.C. Shurburtt and Michael Flint. But for the spread, we'll let Raphael kind of tell us what you should do. What should you do? And by you, I mean Darren and his brethren with Penn State and Wisconsin. Right now, the Badgers, according to mybookie.ag, are 5.5-point favorites.
We should pray
at Camp Randall. Noon on Fox tomorrow. The big noon kickoff returns to Fox. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I like Darren. I talked to him yesterday. We had a nice conversation, but he might have a long afternoon. Because here's my Big Ten winner, conference winner, is Wisconsin. I think they're going to control the offense and defensive line. If Penn State can't stop the running game of Wisconsin, this game could get ugly. And I think Wisconsin can, I don't want to say run the table, but they can really be interesting in the Big Ten this year. I know Ohio State looked like they had some issues last night. I don't think their secondary looked as fast as we've seen the Buckeyes. If Wisconsin can get quality quarterback play, I'm not talking Heisman play, I'm not talking NFL quarterback play, just quality quarterback play. I would not want to play Wisconsin at all this year because we know their defense is going to be really good.
So Wisconsin whips them.
Sorry, Darren. Yes,
whips them. I don't know, man.
I think Penn State has a rebound this year. I don't know if they win this game, but I don't think that will. If they lose a game, I don't think it means Penn State's a bad football team at all. I like Penn State.
No, the loser of the game is likely knocked out of the playoff hunt. I mean, running the table. Maybe, but the loser of this game is a massive uphill fight to be in contention for the playoffs.
According to Raphael, that's your boys.
I mean, the season can go either way for Wisconsin and Penn State. It's one of, and I think I might be biased. I think it's the biggest game of Saturday. It is the most important game Saturday.
Yeah, you're biased.
Wind dust that came in out of the sun. And
Raphael, I'll handle it for you. Yes, he's biased. It's okay. I think that South Carolina, Eastern Illinois is the biggest game in the country, but we're not picking that yet.
The most important.
That is the most. I think that's the most important. 19-12, by the way, are the rankings here. Penn State and Wisconsin. All right, so Major League Baseball isn't the only thing that they play in Iowa these days. College football's back. The Hawkeyes will welcome Indiana. 3.5-point favorites is Iowa in this one. The over/under, according to mybookie.ag, is 46. These teams rank right next to each other. The Hoosiers at 17. Michael Penix Jr. returns, and the Hawkeyes at 18. What do you think about this one?
This one opened up at 6 like 2 months ago. Now it's 4. So if you're looking to bet IU, you got a bad number. If you're looking to bet Iowa, wait to see if you can get 3.5 or even 3. So I'm playing this, so I'm just going to sit back and watch this game. But I love the way that this football program of IU is trending, and now the last couple of years. So I'm gonna be rooting for IU. Probably won't gonna have a play on this one, but how can you root against Iowa when they're waving to those sick kids? Home game after home game after home game. But give me IU on this one. I'll be rooting for the Hoosiers. My sister would be happy. She's a Hoosier grad.
Oh, does she like the movie Hoosiers as well?
No, but one of the greatest sports movies of all time.
Oh, no question. Oh, I can watch it over and over and over and act like I've never seen it. MyBookie.ag is where you can follow along on Twitter at VSI.Sports. At VSI.Sports. If you follow us, you can follow him. It's pretty easy. Rafael Esparza at 12:50 on this Friday afternoon, telling you how to win some dough. 4 o'clock tomorrow. I've got this one on here because I'm interested to see what Mike Leach looks like in year 2, and you never know about Mike Leach in game 1 either. In his career. Mississippi State will host Skip Holtz and Louisiana Tech at 4 o'clock. The over-under's at 52.5, and the spread is 23. Can Mississippi State cover 23 in week 1?
Well, I got this number at 26, I think a couple of weeks ago with La Tech. So I'm looking for a nice middle spot. So if this number can continue to come down, I'm going to be whipping my cowbells and trying to get that middle. I'm trying to see if I can get 22 or lower, but I think Mississippi State wins, but that's a lot of points. Give me La Tech plus the points.
Mm-hmm. Lafayette and Texas tomorrow at 4:30. Watch out. Holy smokes, Steve Sarkisian doesn't want to lose this one. Week 1 could be a doozy if he does. They're actually both ranked. The line is closer than maybe some people think, and certainly closer than Texas would like. 8. The Horns are only 8-point favorites against Louisiana Lafayette. Does the state of Louisiana rally around the Cajuns, ship them off to Austin, and bring them home with a victory?
One Louisiana team wins on Saturday, and this game right here between the Raging Cajuns and the Longhorns, I heard this before I jumped on the air with you guys. I heard from multiple sources, whoever wins this game goes to the SEC. The Raging Cajuns will be in the SEC. Give me the plus points on the Raging Cajuns over Texas. I'm taking a +9.
You've got them to cover, but not win.
No, I don't think they win. But I think Texas wins by a touchdown.
Okay, all right. Ooh, boy, gracious. Speaking of Louisiana, there's another team, as you just mentioned, from that great state. God bless all of you. We're praying for you. That this team, though, is going to be in Cali. There's wildfires out there. We're praying for them as well. LSU and UCLA, 8:30 tomorrow night. Right now, LSU is 3-point favorites in the ball game, Raphael. So there's some storylines in the Rose Bowl, certainly. Look, UCLA has a game under their belt. They beat Hawaii last week. Hawaii's not any good, and we all get that. But they did get a chance to play 4 quarters. We've heard Kirk Herbstreit this week talk about Chip Kelly's 4th-year team under his leadership. He likes them. He thinks they've got a chance, certainly tomorrow night, and a chance to maybe make some noise in the Pac-12 this year. LSU's trying to rebound. 5-5 last year. They had all types of off-field problems, still do. They were 5-5. They couldn't stop anybody on defense. They had some transfers in the offseason. Eric Gilbert left, tried to come back, left again, tried to come back, left again, took a nap. Now he's at Georgia, and he's not playing. Do they get beat and upset by UCLA?
Yes, they do. I think Frost from Nebraska and Ed Orgeron will be maybe updating their resumes at the end of the season to see if they can find something else. I think Coach O is on a hot seat, not because of his play, but just the whole fiasco of how they handled some issues at LSU. UCLA wins this game. I'm not sold on LSU's offense at all. When you don't have not one offensive player on the Heisman list anywhere, and the only one you have is a defensive guy, give me UCLA plus the points. This one opened up at 4.5, 5. This will be 2 or 2.5 by kickoff. The wise guys, we're taking 6-figure action on UCLA at plus 3.5, some plus 3s. The Bruins win. LSU, they may be looking at maybe when does baseball start.
So the wise guys are going in hard on UCLA now, huh?
Yes.
Interesting. All right. Oh, God, LSU, don't lose this one. Do you have a line on Eastern Illinois and South Carolina?
I do, but I thought I saw one. Hold on, let me see.
It's in the 40s somewhere.
Yeah, I thought I saw like 47 around there. I'll have to look in it, but I think it's 47. But no, if it's around there, no. South Carolina doesn't cover that big number. I think South Carolina wins like around 30, 34 points. But if it's in the 40s, Eastern Illinois, give me that.
Okay. All right, we'll finish with some other big ones here. Let's start with Louisville and Ole Miss coming up on Monday night, Raphael. This might not yet be on some folks' radars because it's on Monday night, Labor Day. Thank the good Lord for a long weekend. Darren, you and I actually get to party. 10 points. 10 points. That's what the Rebels are favored by at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia on Monday night. Matt Corral might be the best quarterback in the Southeastern Conference, Raphael, and if he gets off to a hot start, there's probably going to be some people that start kind of putting his name into that Heisman race under Lane Kiffin here in year two. Louisville, we don't really know who they are. I thought I knew who they were, and last year, they were just kind of all Scott Satterfield's guys had some work to do. They've got work to do to win this one as well. Could be a lot of points. The over-under 75.5.
Yeah, I don't think defense is going to be an issue for this game. I like the plus points. I mean, I loved Mississippi when it was 7 a couple of months ago. I'm thinking, okay, maybe if it's 7, maybe the public would jump on Louisville. But for some reason, the bettors love to bet the Cardinals, both football and basketball. But it totally went the opposite way, and I just can't take Mississippi and keep them at home -10. I'm probably waiting to see if this comes down or maybe a second half bet. But if I had to bet the game, I'm taking the +10. But I mean, how can you not? If you're looking to bet the total, if you bet this game under, again, there's a 1-800 number I can give you for problem gambling. If you think if you're going to bet an Ole Miss game under.
How about Notre Dame and Florida State? 9th-ranked Notre Dame. They're only 7.5-point favorites in Tallahassee. Are they on upset alert?
No, because you never bet against Notre Dame on a Sunday. Touchdown Jesus will help them on a Sunday. Notre Dame wins by 2 touchdowns.
I hadn't even thought about that. That might have just persuaded my pick a little bit later on in the show. All right, Alabama and Miami. Right now, the Tide are 19.5-point favorites. The over-under is at 61. 3:30 kickoff on ABC tomorrow in Atlanta, Georgia.
Like I told you guys before, the SEC would probably be something like the Sun Belt if it wasn't for the Crimson Tide. And until someone can tell me something different, why would you bet against Alabama? I know they're playing Miami that has a stud quarterback and has some players, but this is Alabama. Give me Alabama. I don't care if this was -40. I would probably still look at them twice and say, you know what? I'll probably I'll lay -40 against the Crimson Tide.
Bama. Bryce Young gets off to a Heisman race tomorrow. Yeah, I hear you. We'll pick that one later as well. And finally, the biggest game in the country.
BYU, Arizona?
Yeah, no, Southern Miss and South Alabama. Where have you been? If you're down that way, head over and check them out. 3 is the line. Clemson favored over Georgia, a 3-5 matchup. The over-under on the dot, 50 up there in Charlotte tomorrow night. Of course, a 7:30 kickoff on ABC from Bank of America Stadium. Somebody's going to be a little bit behind the 8 ball after this one, but you might also have a couple of quarterbacks who are in the Heisman Trophy race. What do you think about it? Who wins? Who covers?
The only thing that might make me put a smile on my face these last couple of days, if LSU goes down, if Miami beats Alabama, and another SEC school goes down and Clemson wins, it'll be like my Christmas morning. I won't ask for any Christmas birthday presents or nothing. But I like Georgia. I think Georgia will be too much on the running game. I think their defense is a lot better than Clemson's. I'm looking at quarterback play. I have to see the Clemson offense. I wish maybe they played a junkie school like Lamar or something like that, then played this game. But first game, a lot of butterflies probably in that Clemson offense. I'm going to take the +3. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs. But I'll be rooting for Clemson because you know me. I love me some SEC.
So +3, but not outright.
No, I won't. I usually don't bet money lines. I'm not greedy. I usually just take the plus points. If I can cover, I'm happy. I usually don't roll the dice on that much money line.
We'll see. Clemson, from what I understand, more than likely going to be without Tyler Davis tomorrow night. That will be a blow But they have a lot of talent on that defensive line. We're going to let you run, brother. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Keep in touch. We will touch base with you in the next couple of days as well. Y'all are in our thoughts and prayers down there, and spread the good word in New Orleans as well, man. Thank you very much, Raphael.
I will not be expecting Darren to come by with his chainsaw because I have a bunch of trees in front of my courtyard. So what time you be here, Darren? About what, a couple hours?
I go, what's a chainsaw?
Yeah. I've got one. I'll bring it.
Take it easy, guys. Have a great weekend.
Later.
Thank you. Time for a timeout. When we return, the debut of the Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice, right here on JB and Goldwater. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and to others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Rice, touchdown! He caught it in traffic. Big sack for the Gamecocks. J.J. Inigbari.
Walks it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
JB and Goldwater presents the Gamecock Preview Show, proudly brought to you by Motley Rice. Our history makes us bold. Our boldness makes history. And now it's time for some Gamecock football.
Get the ball to Bennett. It's going
for everything. Ellis looking for Brooks. Touchdown! Oh my!
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Back to Thomas Dendy, and Dendy spins into the open, and he's on his way. It's a tie-ball game if they can get the extra point. 20, 15, 10, 5, second of the day.
There's never been more excitement about South Carolina football than there is right now.
I've heard all the stories of the great George Rogers out back in 1980. He made the whole nation holler. And I've seen that photograph of young Steve Tannehill. Signing his name on the field. Yeah, and I love the year 2001 at the Williams Restaurant. Oh, what else can I say? I'm just a big old car.
Finally, Gamecock football has returned. Welcome to the first Big Gamecock preview show on JB and Goldwater. JC Shurburtt, owner of the BigSpur.com, pulling double duty, and he'll do it throughout the season and join us right here every Friday at 1 o'clock. The Big Gamecock Preview show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice, a law firm with international reach but hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights hard every day for people harmed by products such as asbestos, talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, even catastrophic injury and auto recalls like those defective Takata airbags. If you've been impacted by one or any of these products, visit motleyrice.com, motleyrice.com to learn about those options. Everybody should know that name. Joe Rice, of course, his name is on a building in Columbia, one of the great Gamecocks that we have, and so is J.C. Shurburtt. Finally, my friend, it has arrived. Welcome aboard, and here we go.
Great. Excuse me. Great to be here. Great to be part of this preview show. Really like these because it's time to start getting down to brass tacks. Watched some games last night, as kind of the kickoff, got a little taste. So I'm ready to roll today.
I talked to JC last night. He looks good. Better than I thought he'd look.
I look beautiful.
Yeah. South Carolina and Eastern Illinois, 7 o'clock tomorrow night in Williams-Brice Stadium. Of course, now seating 77,559. No final count on season ticket totals this year, JC. We do know it's over 40,000, and it's not sold out just yet. We do expect many to be in there. A lot of students have already gobbled up their tickets. And a lot of freshmen, by the way, have gotten tickets for this ball game, so that's really good. It's nationally televised on ESPN Plus and the SEC Network Plus. Bill Roth will call it. Chris Doring will analyze it. And Alex Chappell will be down on the sidelines. Of course, if you're going to listen to it on the Gamecocks app or on a radio somewhere near you, wherever you are, Todd Ellis, Tommy Suggs, they've got it. Jamar Nesbitt back on the sidelines as well. It is the first game for Shane Beamer, and that is obviously the national storyline. We'll get to a couple of notes on Eastern Illinois coming up here in just a few moments, and Michael Flint will join us at about 1:35 this afternoon. Keep in mind, both JC and Michael will display their intelligence throughout the next 13 weeks with their game picks. So I will kick their asses. I plan to kick Darren's from him beating mine last year on this show. But look, JC, let's talk straight about Shane Beamer. Everybody always says keep the emotion out of it. We're going to put the emotion into it here because that's exactly what Shane Beamer has been doing since December. He has brought emotion back to the program, right? Forget about Clemson fans, forget about Georgia fans, forget about Tennessee fans. If they watched their team play last night, they have their own problems. Forget about all of that. Forget about the fan side of things. For all of those watching and listening right now, be a homer for this minute right here. I'm not asking you to necessarily, JC. I'm telling everybody, be a homer for a minute. The feels are there. And yeah, when they play tomorrow night, if it's a little sloppier, things don't go their way, some of that's certainly going to fade. But what I've gathered in the last 8.5, 9 months is that this fan base is ready to welcome whatever you want to call it. Whether it's a rebuild, a rebrand, a regrowth of Gamecock football, they're willing to give this guy his due time, and I don't think they were willing to do that for the prior staff. And he has found a way to emotionally connect with a bunch of Gamecock fans who've really been through a lot over the last 4 or 5 years as it pertains to their football program.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the most impressive things I think about Shane Beamer, you always talk about fit for any job. And it's a great fit, right now. When you look at kind of what he's done and the immediate needs of the program, this program needed some positive energy. This fan base needed a head coach that embraces the little things that Gamecock fans love. Not a lot of people around the country have done deep dives into the tradition and history of South Carolina football. And so I think other coaches that have come in, have kind of just tried to apply their own, label to it. And I think at a lot of times, especially during the Holtz and Spurrier era, as good as those eras were historically, it was Lou Holtz's team, or it was Steve Spurrier's team, or that's South Carolina. Shane Beamer has, embraced all the things going back to the 80s and 70s and the glory years under Spurrier and the traditions and Sandstorm and 2001 and everything that, as Gamecock fans, everybody has been around for years. He's embraced it quite a bit, and not only done that, but made it a front and center kind of thing. When he talks about his program, it goes kind of beyond football, beyond, taking care of the players and all that. It's a unifying kind of deal with fans, players, whoever. And I think, there has been a disconnect, and I think, Shane Beamer's done everything he can to try to heal that, and so far so good.
More on that in a moment. How will they do that? What are we watching? Certainly going to get into that with both JC and with Michael. Here's a little tie to JC's neck of the woods. Adam Cushing is the head coach of the Eastern Illinois Panthers, graduate of the University of Chicago in 2002. Here's a stat for you, boys and girls. Find me another game like this where the combined win total between two head coaches is 2. Adam Cushing has 2 wins in his career, 2-17 as he enters his 3rd season with Eastern Illinois. Look, the program, it's not good. They were predicted to finish last in the OVC. Murray State is predicted to win that league, for those that really even care about that. Their last 10 meetings against FBS programs have not been good. They haven't won any of those. And their last 2 against FBS programs at the level of South Carolina, Indiana, and Arkansas, they have combined to lose 107-20. So it hadn't been pretty for Eastern Illinois, and I think most folks are not expecting it to be pretty tomorrow. But we've talked for weeks, JC, about strengths and weaknesses of Gamecock football, those that we have known or think that we know, at least based on intel from places like the Big Spur and what coaches and players have to say, and things that we don't know, but we kind of assume we know. So based on all of that information, how will we evaluate our strengths and our weaknesses tomorrow after 4 quarters of football?
Well, this game's probably going to be difficult to get a gauge. How do I put this? An applicable evaluation. In other words, when I say applicable evaluation, I mean you can look at the team play and go, okay, well, they're going to do this against Georgia or Kentucky or even East Carolina. You have to keep in mind level of competition. I think what you want to avoid is a game like we saw last night, Tennessee and Bowling Green, where, if you were in Knoxville, second quarter, you're looking up and Bowling Green's outgained you 123-5 in that quarter. If you're a Gamecock fan and that happens against Eastern Illinois, you're going to be a little concerned. I mean, you want to avoid that. You want to, you keep hearing the term from Marcus Satterfield and Shane Beamer, both clean game. Don't go out there and throw a bunch of incompletions, run the football, establish your lines of scrimmage, which should be a strength of this team this year and would be applicable moving forward against other opponents, and win the game and have fun doing it. I think that's the fun of South Carolina football, needs to be back. And sometimes games like this will help you do that. Eastern Illinois, lots of respect for their program and the tradition they have. Wrote a little piece yesterday about them, and I didn't know this. They won the 1978 Division II national title, and led by running back Poke Cobb, who's from Clover, South Carolina. And he's he tragically died in 1990 in a car accident in Clover, but he's the rushed for 5,000 yards there, and they won it all. Of course, Mike Shanahan was the offensive coordinator there. Sean Payton went to school there. Tony Romo, Jimmy Garoppolo, we all know the story there. So they have tradition and history. Charleston, Illinois is out on the prairie, kind of in the middle of nowhere, but a lot of proud Panthers there. But, they are rebuilding. They were I'll say this, a lot of talk about them being like that Charleston Southern team a couple of years ago. I don't think that at all after watching Eastern play the other day. I think you're better than CSU was that year. So if you're expecting 72-10, hopefully it happens. I mean, 72-10 would be great if you're the Gamecocks, but don't be disappointed if they're not. If a running back doesn't rush 6 times for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns like Kevin Harris did against CSU a couple of years ago.
One of the great names in the sport, by the way, is their quarterback, Otto Kuhns, will be behind center.
It's a very German name, like Shurburtt. I like that. Otto.
You must know each other.
Dealership NIL waiting to happen with that.
Volkswagen. You got to get Otto Kuhns on the Volkswagen.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll call Mike Mazzell at Stokes Volkswagen down here, see if he wants to do that.
That's right. if you're tailgating this year, you probably, if you need a bigger ride, that's where you go. They got a great selection of used cars at Stokes Volkswagen. That's where I bought my new truck, as a matter of fact. All right. So, JC, I want to piggyback on what you had to say, and then I want to move on to something we saw last night. But I just want to get your thoughts on this. I mentioned this to Darren, and it's going to be part of an ECU conversation. We're playing Eastern Illinois this week. The Gamecocks are, I understand that. Yeah. But I do want to lump ECU into this because they did play last night. But I'm going to start it and try to be a good host here and flow this thing into that. Here's what I always look for in week one, especially in games like this. If you're Alabama and Miami, if you're Clemson and Georgia, yeah, it's going to be a little important to execute tomorrow. Those are games that you are trying to, win, to win a conference championship, win a national championship. Losses can cost you there. So, yeah, you got to be on your P's and Q's. But when you're a team like South Carolina, Tennessee last night, for instance, and many others out there who play opponents that are inferior to them, I look for a couple of things. Schematics. I mentioned this to Darren earlier. What do they look schematically? What's it look like? We don't know what this is going to look like, so that's an important piece. Yeah. But then here's but no matter what, I always look at this. Do you have dudes or not? We know what a good athlete looks like. We know what a 6'2", 350-pound belly ball looks like a defensive tackle compared to a 6'5", 290-pound guy who can shove your rear end back 10 yards with, one flip of the thumb, basically. So I want to see Carolina's dudes. Do they have them? We think that they do, JC. You and I feel very comfortable about the trenches and others. And yeah, they're playing Eastern Illinois, so it might look a little better than it is. But if you have a little bit of football sense, you can tell whether you have the athletes or not that can help you get through an SEC season.
Sure. And what you don't want to do is overreact play to play about that. You got to kind of, I think, keep it all in front of you and judge. Because, look, Brad Johnson, for example. Let's say Brad Johnson goes out there and has a fantastic game at will linebacker. He's making tackles. And then all of a sudden, second quarter, they call a draw play and he gets sucked out of position and they run. And, all of a sudden the narrative is Brad Johnson's awful, and because of the one bad play. There are no perfect football games, offensive lineman misses a block, running back gets stuffed in the backfield. That may happen tomorrow night, and it doesn't mean that they're a bad offensive line. It just means sometimes plays happen. And so I would encourage everybody to kind of look at the totality of it. But absolutely, you can look out there and go, well, this guy's big and can run, and look at this guy and that guy, and get a good individual evaluation on it, a team evaluation on it. I mean, I know especially at quarterback, you're going to really get a good idea about Zeb Nolan, and maybe Jason Brown too, and maybe a couple other ones. So, I think it has value, not only from what we do, analyze it and talk about it and write about it, but from a fan standpoint, because these days practices aren't open, scrimmages definitely aren't open anywhere. So it's a bigger mystery than it used to be for these opening games. So I'm really looking forward to that too, and getting a good idea of the personnel and what they look like in real games against another team.
The best NIL deal in the country was debuted yesterday, just as an FYI to everybody. Steven Garcia is the commercial ringleader for Green's liquor store in Columbia, South Carolina. But here's why I'm mentioning that. Run by Green's and get you some blackberry whiskey jam for your tailgate tomorrow if you're going to be in Columbia. They do have it. It is fantastic. Green's is. The whiskey is better, and you might see a photo of Steven. And I
love Steven Garcia. I love.
Embrace it, baby. Embrace it.
People give him a hard time sometimes about things, but hey, he was 4-1 against Georgia and Clemson. Threw for 3,000 yards one year. That hadn't happened a lot, and won the only division title. So. And had a lot of fun doing it. He's people don't realize that Steven's a great human being too,
Absolutely.
and all that. So whatever coin is being put in his pocket by Green's Own Assembly, I think it's great, and it makes me want to shop at Green's next time I'm in town.
No question. I can't wait. I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to wait and buy it there, just for that. To your point, I've known Steven a long time, and he's kind of a goofball about some things, but as a father myself, I have a lot of respect for him because he's a great dad. And
works with kids too.
Loves
helping them with
kids.
football.
He loves kids, man. He is a great guy. So let's translate this. Do you have dudes to ECU? It's largely expected that South Carolina is not only going to beat Eastern Illinois tomorrow, it should be by a fairly comfortable margin, JC. And we're going to talk more about the specifics with Michael Flint coming up in about 15 or so minutes here on our program. If they win that game, then it's on to ECU, and it's critically important for the Gamecocks, if they have any desires to go bowling, win the first two.
Yeah.
I've been thinking for a while, wait, there could be some hiccups in ECU, and I'm not backing away from that. They absolutely can go to Greenville, North Carolina and lose that game. And we're not looking ahead. We're trying to preview this game. But this does pertain to South Carolina football, and I'm just going to be blunt. ECU is not good. And in the trenches, they're worse than not good. They got blown out and off the ball last night by App State, who is good. Don't get me wrong. But there's no reason why App State should be able to do that up front. I'm talking specifically right there, where the game's controlled, and why South Carolina shouldn't be able to do it next week. Could they lose? Sure. If there's anybody who can make somebody look great, it's the Gamecocks. We've been doing that around here a long time. We're pretty talented at that. But I watched ECU last night, not impressed.
I expected them to be better, to be honest. I thought 10-point spread was a little bit much for them. They were a victim of some calls here and there. But, I always felt, when this game rolled onto the schedule, watching East Carolina, because you look at it at East Carolina, it's a road game. Oh, God, they're going up there. The ghost of the 90s come back. And you look at it, but I felt like evaluating their season last year and the returning players that they're still a year away and looking at their recruiting. I think Mike Houston's going to win there.
Yeah,
of course, he's inherited a lot of great situations when he's won at his Citadel and at James Madison. Those are two jobs that were set up for him when he got there. So he's having to build at ECU. But you're right. I think they've got pieces in place. The Gamecocks can absolutely not afford to go up there and turn the ball over and play sloppy and expect to win it. They have the Mitchell kid's got a lot of speed, the big play guy. Harris, of course, is a Burns High product that's probably, had he stayed in better shape in high school, would have gotten better than ECU offer, but he's a stud and their quarterback's dangerous. But you're right. App State, I got a call from a coaching friend of mine, and he's like, this is like Alex Gibbs. The ghost of Alex Gibbs would be pleased because all App does is run zone after zone after zone after zone. And it's hard because they'll block you and they'll keep blocking you by the time the fourth quarter gets there, that you're just running through them. Oh, from what I hear and think, I think South Carolina is going to have, some zone running plays and things like that. It could be problematic for the Pirates. But you're right. One game first, and then they head up to Greenville next week. But I will say, after last night, the trips to Greenville and Knoxville, if you're Gamecock fans, you're a little bit more like, oh, okay, well, maybe, because maybe South Carolina's not as bad, and they can steal a couple on the road, because I wasn't impressed with either team.
1:23 on a Friday afternoon. Me neither. I was actually looking at a thread on the Big Spur about that. A lot of people saw the same things that I saw last night. They just aren't good up front, and you can't win games like that. Buy or sell, a segment that we always do week in and week out around here, and this one pertains to a couple of things in football. Buy or sell is brought to you by our friend Jeff McCarriger. If you're looking for real estate in the Low Country, Jeff McCarriger can help you out. Jeff McCarriger is a dually talented individual because he called the Citadel Coastal game last night up in Conway, and today he's probably doing a closing somewhere. Jeff.McCarriger at Carolina1.com.
He's on his way to Virginia Beach for cornhole. So football last night, cornhole this weekend, and maybe a closing in between.
Awesome. I mean, I'm telling you, the guy can do it all. JC could do it all as well. JC, we're going to lump you into this conversation, buy or sell. Are you buying or selling the SEC goes undefeated this weekend. LSU at UCLA, Bama, Miami, and Louisville, Ole Miss.
In those games?
Yeah. Are you buying that?
I'm buying that. I'm buying that in those games. You didn't mention Georgia and Clemson, so I'm gonna buy that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna buy that one. If we're not including that game, I do think the SEC will go undefeated.
Okay,
that belonged on the graphic. You're correct.
Yeah, well, we're picking that game here just a little bit.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, that cluster of games, buy. And now, look, Miami, Alabama could be close. Don't get me wrong, but I think that Miami can do some problematic things with Bama, but I feel comfortable about all those. And look, UCLA, LSU is probably going to be close too. But you know, I expect Coach O to go out there and get a big win.
What if they lose? What if they lose?
Tigers, because there's going to be 20,000 disappointed Cajuns in Los Angeles, in Pasadena.
There might be more LSU fans there than there will be UCLA fans.
Yeah, they travel, man. LSU's opened, I think, out in Tempe before. They went to Seattle during the Les Miles era, and they played Washington, and then this one. UCLA would be on my list of home and homes if the Gamecocks could ever schedule it, just because, you know, the Rose Bowl Stadium and all that good stuff.
I agree. Yeah, my cousin went out there and said it was awesome. All right, are you buying or selling, JC? Again, brought to you by our friend Jeff McCarriger at Carolina One Real Estate. Are you buying or selling South Carolina wins by 40 points?
I am selling because my prediction was not 40 points, so I will sell that. That's a big number. Just like last night, Bowling Green was getting 37 in the game, and I was like, I like that play with the Falcons, with Bowling Green. But 40 is just a lot of points for an opener, And look, hey, the Gamecocks may win, may cover that. I mean, it's very realistic that it happens. I just, I got to stick with my prediction. I'd be a hypocrite if I bought it, but you only picked them to win by whatever, so 32 or whatever. So
I wouldn't buy that either. And then finally, are you buying or selling DJ Uiagalelei throwing for 300 plus yards against Georgia tomorrow night?
I'm going to sell that. I expect a defensive somewhat, the nation tomorrow night is going to find out if last year when the SEC and a lot of teams most leagues resembled the Big 12 with these 42 to 28 average games. You're going to find out, if that was a trend in college football or if that's something that was an aberration because of COVID. And my leaning is toward that was COVID. Okay, and that was because of how 2020 unfolded. I think defenses are going to be coming back, and in Charlotte, I think that's going to be on display. So, no, DJ will not top 300 yards.
JC Shurburtt, 127 on this Friday afternoon. We'll get into some game picks here in a moment, JC, but final thoughts on tomorrow night's matchup between Eastern Illinois and South Carolina, a couple of keys to the game and what you will most intently be monitoring for the Gamecocks.
I think a lot of people just assume South Carolina should go out there and run it 100 times and go ahead. And yeah, you do need to establish the run against this team. It's a huge advantage. But don't be surprised, if South Carolina mixes it up, tries to go downfield a little more than you expect. I think a lot of people, based on the spring game and maybe some clips of practice, think this is a dink and dunk offense. They've been pretty clear when they said it isn't. So I'm looking to see the passing game get going. And then defensively, obviously, you got a quarterback that's wasn't all that accurate last week, Otto Kuhns. You got to contain him and make sure he can't use his feet to hurt you and get the ball downfield. So I'm looking at pass rush and discipline on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it's look, Will Muschamp did some good things, JC. Number one, he recruited a bunch of good kids. There's a lot of good kids on this team. Yeah. And I know you've talked to Shane Beamer specifically about that. I do think a lot of them needed a fresh start, and they've got that certainly with this coaching staff. The other thing last year, they weren't penalized a lot. They weren't a good football team, but they were a fairly disciplined football team out there. It was unusual to see a bunch of flags flying at South Carolina. Matter of fact, I think they were the least penalized team in the SEC, or second. I mean, it was pretty good. Yeah, so, obviously we're looking to get some things cleaned up. I'm going to talk to Michael a lot about that here in just a few moments, but I hope that those trends continue. I hope that this is a disciplined football team, JC, because, the Kentucky's, the ECU's, the Tennessee's, the Missouris, games like that, poor discipline gets you beat in ball games like that, and the line's too thin for Carolina. They can't overcome it.
And that's turnovers too. Turnovers we haven't all talked about turnovers a lot because in practice it got a lot better as the last 2 weeks on offense specifically. The defense was forcing turnovers, so I guess that's a good thing. But you can't go out there and put the ball on the ground. You can't go out there and throw interceptions. I mean, that's just you don't want to do that tomorrow night. And you especially don't want to set the tone for that moving forward. So I agree. Turnovers, penalties, clean football. That's the key.
We'll make some picks here with JC. We'll reserve a couple of them for Michael as well. And then we'll be out of here in about a half an hour. But here you go, JC. I hope you can keep up with Darren and I.
Oh, yeah, that sounded like you were totally scared.
Man, these picks, man, it's tough. It's tough. I tell everybody, if it's against the spread, don't listen to me. You're going to lose money. So
yeah, these are just win or lose here.
All right, win or lose.
Penn State and Wisconsin, noon on Fox from Camp Randall tomorrow. Wisconsin 5.5-point favorites.
I think the Badgers will win and win comfortably. I'm not buying Penn State. They're going to have to show me that last year was just last year, and I think the Badgers, obviously have a really good team coming back, and the Camp Randall's just too difficult up there for big noon kickoff. That's one place I wouldn't mind being on tomorrow morning. Is Madison. Madison's not too far from here, by the way, but it's for that thing because those people are crazy and it's a great atmosphere.
Both of them obviously have, Darren well knows, tremendous home atmospheres and ballparks. I'm with you. I think Wisconsin beats Penn State. Do like Penn State. Think they're going to have a good year. But Wisconsin wins by a touchdown.
Obviously, I'm going to pick Penn State because this is a toss-up. This is up in the air, so I'm not just staying on the homer side. I kind of defer. Josh Pate laid out what Penn State fans should be thinking, and he nailed it. And he's not a Penn State fan. This is one of those make or break games. This can define the trajectory of the season. The pieces are there, in Pate's words, but show me you're better. Show me last year was a fluke. I'm going to buy that Penn State shows that it was a fluke.
Fair enough. How about Alabama and Miami, 3:30 on ABC?
Alabama, I would pick Alabama to win, guys, but, I do Wednesday mornings, a segment in Tuscaloosa, and something struck me the other day during my conversation. The feeling was just almost like, how much is Alabama going to win by, rather than are they going to win the game? And, this is a shot for Miami to get up off the mat and make a statement. We've been waiting on that for about 16 years. But, but Alabama, though, I think defense, they're too strong, and the nation's going to get a look at Bryce Young, the new quarterback the $1 million man, out there for the Tide. I think you're going to like what you see. I'm hesitant about it because I do see this as a potential hiccup game for Bama. I mean, really, I do, but they're too strong, and Miami's disappointed too many times for me to go the other way.
Miami probably wins the first half just by the fact that they're really close, but they're not going to win the game. Alabama wins the game.
Alabama wins the game. I'll keep that nice and quick.
Yeah, I don't know if they cover, but yeah, they win. All right, Indiana, Iowa, 17-18 matchup on the Big Ten Network at 3:30 from Kinnick Stadium tomorrow afternoon.
That's another the Big Ten sort of scheduled a bunch of good games.
Shoot. Great weekend.
But I'm going to go with Iowa just because I'm not a buyer of the Indiana Renaissance. I think Tom Allen's a heck of a coach. That's a brutal job. Penix, how is he going to play is a big deal. Kinnick, you don't just walk into Kinnick Stadium and win the opener. I mean, it's Iowa's one of those. It's a top 20 team, top 20 program, and I think Iowa actually could surprise some people this year. So I'm picking Iowa Hawkeyes.
Yeah, Iowa. I echo exactly what JC just said.
I agree.
But is Penn State, are they slumping? Are they back? Was last year a fluke? Similar with Indiana. Was last year a fluke? Are they on the rise? You prove it to me. I like Kinnick Stadium. I like Iowa at home.
I'm with you. I don't think it was necessarily a fluke, but I do think it'll take a little time to kick it into gear. I'm with Iowa. I totally agree. La Tech and Mississippi State. I'll lead this off. Quick pick here. ESPNU 4 o'clock. JC. Kind of a big spread, 23, but the Pirate gets it done. Mississippi State beats Skip Holtz.
Yeah, I'll pick Mississippi State to win the game. I think there'll be a lot of points on the board. Skip Holtz, dangerous coach in these types of situations, though.
Yeah.
Scared the out of Carolina a couple years ago. Arkansas escaped with a 1-point win in Fayetteville a couple years ago. So
that's right.
Beware of the other Bulldogs, a Bulldog matchup. But I think Leach is probably just like licking his chops and ready to go dial up some plays and put a bunch of points on the board, and I think that'll happen.
No shot La Tech beats Leach in Mississippi State tomorrow. No shot he opens year 2 there with a loss to La Tech.
How about Louisiana? Do they have a shot to beat Texas? They're 8-point dogs in Austin.
I think this is something that's been overstated. I think, Louisiana obviously went and pulled a massive upset last year at Iowa State. And Iowa State ended up being pretty daggum good. So, look, Texas has a lot bigger problems if they lose this game, or even if it's close. I like Louisiana, a ton of respect for Billy Napier and that program. But Texas has more talent. I mean, and it's a debut game for Sark, so we will see if anything has changed. But I would pick Texas. I think a lot of people are overstating that this is a even matchup, even with the 21st and 23rd teams or whatever they're ranked.
Darren, I'm going with Texas.
I'm going Texas too. I think Sarkisian starts it off the right way. Texas fans, look, that fan base can't afford this loss.
Yeah,
they can't. Not with all the positive momentum they got from the last couple of weeks. They're going to win.
Do not lose to the Raging Cajuns.
No. 2 minutes left here. How about LSU? They've got some Cajuns in that fan base. They're at UCLA 8:30 on Fox in the Rose Bowl.
I'm going to pick LSU, but it could be like one of those 35-31 games. It may go a lot like the LSU-Texas game a couple of years ago where back and forth. I'll be honest. I watched UCLA play Hawaii last week, and I was more impressed with them than I have been at any point since Chip Kelly took that job, especially on defense. They played better defense than I thought they would. But it should be a heck of an atmosphere out there. And, UCLA knocked off Tennessee way back in the 2000s when they went out for the opener. And then we'll never forget the meltdown that Texas A&M had against the Bruins when Josh Rosen led them back to a win. So SEC teams going to UCLA to open, it's been the last 20 years or so a tough draw. But I'm going to go with LSU in a pretty high scoring one.
Darren and I will pick this game coming up in our next segment with Michael Flint, so we'll hold off on that. Go ahead and get your pick in. I'm assuming you've got South Carolina winning, so we can move on from there. This is the Gamecock Preview Show. We might pick them to lose every once in a while, but I don't think you're going to do that. And we'll finish with this one, Georgia and Clemson. JC, it's the big one. Who wins?
Yeah, I'm going to hammer the under, and I'm going to say Clemson by 10 points or maybe more. I have a lot of questions about Georgia moving the ball against a very good Clemson defense. I do buy that Georgia's in better shape offensively. I do think they have weapons. I just think Clemson has more, even if their defensive tackle's out and, Tyler Davis or whoever who is a stud. But I think Georgia's defense is also going to give Clemson some problems. But at the end of the day, Clemson has more offensive weapons, I think, to manufacture points. So I'm at 14 is, I wouldn't be surprised if this game is like 17-3 or something.
Wow.
I think you're going to see defense come back in Charlotte now. Now watch it be like, I'm going to get a bunch of text messages in the second quarter. It's going to be 28-28 at halftime,
Yeah. Yeah, I think there will be more points. We'll pick this one coming up here in just a little bit as well. TheBigSpur.com will get you ready for kickoff. Game day is tomorrow in Columbia, South Carolina. And John Whittle, Tony Morrell, J.C. Shurburtt, Hale McGranahan, and the entire staff are ready to rock and roll. 2021 finally has arrived. J.C., thank you so much. Certainly look forward to doing this again next Friday and all of those after. And, of course, next week we'll be talking about ECU and Carolina up in Greenville. Talk to you later, my man. Have a wonderful game day weekend.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And looking forward to this weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.
There you go. J.C. Shurburtt, owner of TheBigSpur.com. Final time out of the afternoon. When we return, Michael Flint joins us here on the Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Hopefully, you won't ever need legal help for a catastrophic injury or health issues from a medical drug or device. But if you or a loved one suffers injury or loss, Motley Rice LLC is a nationally recognized law firm that is right here in Mount Pleasant at 28 Ridgeside Boulevard. Thank you, Motley Rice, for sponsoring the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show. Visit motleyrice.com for more. motleyrice.com.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right. We take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity finance to new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
And what you're about to see is a spectacle unto itself. Let's enjoy.
On the South Carolina Fairgrounds, a stampede this morning. Beautiful blue skies, but the forecast tonight is for a blackout.
The crowd? The crowd is about to go crazy, by the way. 80,000 people. They've sold this place out for the last 6 years in a row.
It's a complete sellout. A crowd tonight of over 85,000 strong, ready to explode, just as they do each time their Fighting Gamecocks are introduced.
This crowd, the atmosphere that's going to be in that stadium, South Carolina needs to hold on to that as long as they can.
And so this frenzied crowd ready for the kickoff. And the rave breaks out in Columbia.
This is Patrick Davis, and you're tuned into the Gamecock Preview Show, brought to you by Motley Rice and served by my Whiskey Jam Whiskey. Go Cocks.
One of my favorite songs in the world, Where I'm From. Patrick Davis, who obviously is a partner of ours in this project. We certainly appreciate him, as we do all of you. And this guy, Michael Flint, will spend the last 15 minutes with us here talking about tomorrow's matchup. Probably going to stretch him a little bit longer next week with East Carolina after we've actually, seen them play. But first and foremost, good afternoon to my dear friend, former Gamecock wide receiver, the original 1-9. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys? ready for a little football tomorrow.
It's back. Finally. Yeah, we're here. We're going to let you make some picks too. We'll spend about 10 minutes or so talking about the ball game, and then we'll mix in a few final ones this afternoon, and then we will be off to our weekend. A reminder to everybody who's watching or listening to our program live, you'll be able to get this either in its entirety for 2 hours, which we hope you'll do, or just this hour following the show, anywhere that you get any of your podcasts. All this is not a podcast. You can just head to jbandgoldwatershow.com, download our app. JC Shurburtt will have this in an email sending out to Big Spur subscribers as well. So it'll be available everywhere if you happen to miss something. And thanks to JC in that last segment. Mike, creativity is a word we've been hearing a lot lately. What exactly does it mean, and how does it pertain to tomorrow's offense?
Yeah, I think from a scheme standpoint and a personnel standpoint, I think, they use the word creativity. I think utilizing more 2 tight end sets, maybe some 2 back sets, and, moving guys around the formation, trying to mix up the defense a little bit, confuse them a little bit with a lot more pre-snap motion because, like I said before, things change when you start moving guys around the formation. You start lining up guys in different spots, whether it be in line with tight end or flexing them out wide. Coverage responsibilities change and certain things. So I think you'll see a variety of different personnel groupings. You may see a 1 tight end, 3 receiver set. You may see a 2 tight end, two running back set with 1 receiver. I think you'll see a lot of creativity from from a personnel standpoint, utilizing the strengths of this team, which is that tight end room. It's an extremely deep room with a lot of athleticism, and trying to create, matchup nightmares with the defense.
So, Mike, have we, if you go back to the Spurrier system at South Carolina, is there anything that we're anticipating seeing that's going to resemble anything we saw there with them?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say as far as, I guess they say the fun and gun and slinging the ball all over the field. I really think we'll try to come out and establish the run. I think another strength is the offensive line and being able to get the ball up and down the field. Utilizing the strengths of this team and really being able to build the pass off of having success in the run. And I know it's not something that, I think Spur, you saw a good mix. And a lot of teams were, scared of getting the ball up and down the field and the big plays. And I think here we're going to have to kind of build it off of the run and being able to get more guys in the box and then being able to throw it around a little bit. But I don't think we're going to overcomplicate it per se for everybody. I think we'll come out and try to keep it, I say keep it simple. Try to limit the amount of potential mistakes and errors and missed assignments. Coming out in this environment, first game of the season, stadium's packed. I think guys are going to be amped up. So, I think that plays into it. I think it'll be different in a way. We're going to try to build off the run to be able to get the ball up and down the field and through the air.
How do you do that with all these guys, Mike? I mean, Rashad Amos is a young man you and I have talked about a lot over the last year since we saw him especially getting meaningful playing time at the end of last season. He's not even listed on the depth chart. That doesn't mean that he won't play. Juju McDowell is listed on the depth chart, and he's fresh into the program. So they seemingly have 5 guys, basically, that they really like that can tote the rock. By the way, Shane Beamer last night has cleared basically everyone to play in this game except for Luke Doty and Ricky Sandage. So how do you do that? I mean, if you're in a game like this, you should control it, you should win it. But at the same time, you kind of want to establish who you are. You want to make sure that you do things crisply and cleanly and the engine is running smooth and things like that. What's that challenge like for an OC like Marcus Satterfield?
I think it really depends on the flow of the game. Does one guy have the hot hand? Is the tempo of the offense? Are they able to get guys in and out? Do you look at it from kind of a series standpoint? But I think, a lot of it is feel. I think a lot of it is in-game feel, and you may see off 3 or 4 guys split reps, or you may see one guy kind of get more snaps just because of how the game is flowing, how well he's running, yardage and all that stuff. So I think a lot of it is kind of in-game feel, who's got the hot hand. But I think with a game like this, you have to look at this thing kind of from a broad scale as well. It's a long season, and there may be a guy that might get a couple of carries tomorrow night, and 3-4 games down the road may have 10 to 15. So I think it just depends a lot, on feel. I think there's a lot of talent in that room. Guys will play, whether it be on special teams or in the backfield. But, in the return game with Juju McDowell being, it seems like he's just electric with the ball in his hands, and how they're utilized, whether it's in the passing game or between the tackles or stretch. So it's going to be interesting, but you're right. It's going to be tough to, for all those guys to touch the ball, as much as they all really want to.
Michael Flint, former wide receiver at South Carolina, 149 on a Friday afternoon. 10 minutes left in the Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. 2-8, 23.5 points per game scored. Opponents, 36 points per game last year for South Carolina. It was awful, as we all know. Offensively, 168 yards per game on the ground and 187.2 yards per game through the air, Michael. The average South Carolina did 355 yards a game offensively. They converted just 36% of their third downs as well. So of those numbers, they all have to improve. I understand that. But seemingly last year, the run game was pretty good, and it was very serviceable, and I think we could probably expect that to be the case again this year. I'm trying to put this in layman's terms for fans, because fans look at numbers, and they see numbers, they understand numbers, and they generally know when those numbers are good and bad. What is a good number from a passing standpoint for South Carolina? I'm not asking you, Michael, by game, but if we look at South Carolina's stats in 14, 15 weeks, and they've thrown for 225 yards a game with where we are in college football, how would you equate that to the conversation of a successful offense?
Well, I think you got to look at, at the ground game as well, and how many yards we're averaging on the ground, kind of in line with that. I think, an overall, yardage count, time of possession, what the defense is doing, I think it all kind of plays into it, because you got to take special teams into account. You look at what Coach Beamer's dad was able to do at Virginia Tech, and if you can convert, special teams and score touchdowns on defense, score special teams touchdowns, that's huge, for the team. But, from a number standpoint, I mean, you want to put up as many yards as you can, to be honest. But when you look at it just, purely, maybe a 225 to 250, I think, it's low. It seems low, but when you look at it from a rushing yardage standpoint and how many possessions per game, time of possession, average series, how many plays you run in each series, there's a lot that kind of goes into it when you look at that number. But, I'd love to see, 300 yards passing, 200 yards on the ground, but, it's not always possible. There's teams that light up the scoreboard and, can sling it and move it up and down the field, but, defensively they can't, couldn't stop a nosebleed, as they say. So, you can put up all the points in the world, but can you stop somebody on defense? And that plays a lot into it. I think we have a very good team defensively. I think there's some unknowns, but I think up front, I think it's as good as we've seen in a long time, and really being able to attack and get after the quarterback, and it's going to play into it as well.
A win over Eastern Illinois for the Gamecocks would end a 6-game losing streak. They have not won since October 17th last year against Auburn. Also, their record in season openers would improve to 85-39-4, 72-20-4 at Williams-Brice Stadium. Carolina would be 33-11 in their last 44 contests against teams outside of the SEC, and they'd be 47-4 against non-Power 5 schools since the turn of the century. Those would be certainly some pretty good numbers. Mike, before we pick a couple of games and let you get out of here, final thoughts on this matchup. I've mentioned with JC and Darren throughout the show today, openers, especially openers like this, an inferior opponent, it's all about dudes, right? We're looking to see, do we have dudes or not? And there are some teams you're looking to go, and they just don't really have a lot of talent. So what will you have your eyeballs on tomorrow night, most importantly, in these first 4 quarters of the 2021 Gamecock football season?
Yeah, I think the one of the big areas I'll be watching is, in the trenches, the offensive line and the defensive line, how we dominate from an offensive standpoint. We return a lot of guys and a lot of good feedback from that offensive line room. And then going up against, that defensive line that we have every day in practice that has a lot of talent and a lot of good players, and seeing how we match up, up front. And, I really I want to see them dominate, because I think that'll give, a good feel for how the season's going to go and how we attack, but also how we utilize the tight ends. What type of personnel groupings we tend to come out in, a little bit more than others. How we move those guys around the formation, and really how we're going to look offensively from that personnel and kind of formation standpoint. Who's getting a lot of the reps, because I think from that tight end position there is a lot of talent there, and seeing who comes out and who's getting a lot of the snaps and what type of formations we're in.
Your expectations of Zeb Nolan.
Just protect the football. Play within yourself. Don't try to be a hero. Really, and just, get the ball to your playmakers. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to, don't put the ball in jeopardy, really, and just limit the turnovers and get your playmakers the ball. I think we'll try to kind of ease them into the game, not come out slinging it all over the place, but really get them into a rhythm, run the football, and then be able to hit some quick game behind it. So, just play within yourself and protect the football, most importantly.
Quick pick on this game, Michael. I'm kind of assuming you're in the same same room as Darren and I here. We all have South Carolina winning and winning comfortably.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Yeah, I expect South Carolina to put up some points. I expect them to play well on defense. I think that I think we can put up 40 points. I'd love to see us do that and, really come out firing and score some touchdowns.
All right, elsewhere. Before we get out of here, let's boogie on over to Sunday night, Notre Dame and Florida State. Michael, will let you go first here. The line, by the way, has dropped to 7. Notre Dame, just a touchdown favorite over a rebuilding Florida State team. Who wins this sucker? 7:30 ABC on Sunday evening.
It's surprising. I think Notre Dame pulls it out, but expecting a much closer game than people expect.
I agree with you. I'm gonna pick Notre Dame, but careful. I for some reason I think Florida State is gonna play well, Darren, but I'm gonna go with the Irish.
There aren't a ton of games you can take a lot from in the opening week. If this is a close game with what's expected of Notre Dame, the question marks around Florida State, this is going to tell you a lot about how packed in the ACC could possibly be. I disagree with both of you. I think Notre Dame wins, and comfortably.
Okay. All right.
Ooh.
I think Ole Miss wins comfortably over Louisville on Monday night, 8 o'clock on ESPN. Really like Ole Miss's offense. Don't like their defense. They'll probably give up a bunch of points, Michael, but they're going to win. Lane Kiffin, they'll definitely cover that 10 points, and they'll beat the Cardinals.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think the Ole Miss has got a high-powered offense. They're going to score a lot. They may give up a lot, but I think they'll outscore Louisville.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss.
Take the over, but take Ole Miss too. But take the over.
The over is 75.
That's right.
Yeah, it's okay. It could get there.
LSU and UCLA. Is UCLA upset-minded, Mike? Do they pull it off?
I don't think so. I think LSU wins, and I think LSU wins big.
Oh. Yeah, okay. Well, since we're not all going to be SEC homers together, UCLA is going to win this football game.
Ooh.
UCLA's got a game under their belt. UCLA doesn't have all the distractions that LSU has with being displaced from their home, having to practice wherever they're practicing, getting out to UCLA and LA. UCLA wins this game, and things get a little rocky for Ed Orgeron.
Ooh, bold.
I am with Michael. I like LSU. I think it's close. But I like LSU. And finally, Georgia and Clemson. Mike?
This is a tough one. I think it's going to be a good game. Georgia's down a couple of their big playmakers. It's going to be tough on JT Daniels. I think Clemson has a really good defense. And as much as it pains me, I think Clemson wins it.
Darren?
I agree. I think Clemson wins. I'm not touching it, but I do think they cover the 3. There's too much questions about the offseason for Georgia, And for Clemson, this quiet, unassuming chip on the shoulder, we got something to prove. My mentality on Clemson has flipped from the last time I saw them thinking maybe they're slipping to now I'm thinking maybe you got to watch out for Clemson this year. And I'm not saying get in the playoffs. I'm saying watch out for Clemson.
Yeah, all summer long I have been anticipating picking Clemson in this game, and I flipped that pick. I'm going with Georgia. And I think I'm going with Georgia. I think something really strange is going to happen in the ball game. I think it'll be the only game Clemson loses this year. I'm not sold on JT Daniels, and that's why I'm going with Georgia, because I'm not sold on JT Daniels. I got a feeling tomorrow he makes me look really stupid for questioning him all summer. So I'm going to go against that. Georgia, close one, beats Clemson to open the 2021 season. Mike, we'll let you run, brother. Game day has finally arrived tomorrow, South Carolina and Eastern Illinois. We'll do it again next Friday, and we certainly look forward to that conversation. Hopefully, South Carolina sits at 1-0.
Hey, enjoyed it, fellas. Go Cox. Have a good one.
Later,
man. Go. You got it. Michael Flint, former wide receiver at South Carolina, and our analyst here on the JB and Goldwater show. And today, of course, the Big Gamecock Preview show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Thanks to Rafael Esparza, Michael Flint, JC Shurburtt, Darren Goldwater, all of you. Football has returned. Last night was fun. Tonight will be fun. This weekend will be a blast. And we'll be back on Tuesday. Have a happy Labor Day weekend. And thank you so much for watching the JB and Goldwater show and the Big Gamecock Preview show, both very proudly presented by Motley Rice and driven by Stokes Volkswagen.